Good evening, traders. Welcome to the CloudChartist Ichimoku wrap-up for the week ending October 30th. This is November 1st, Sunday night. I'm doing this video for you. I'm going to start off looking at the ES. If you note, there's a blue box drawn on this chart. That box is to illustrate the gap from back at the end of June when we put in a very large gap down, and we did come and fill in that gap, but I just left it there to illustrate how important gap levels can be into the future. So last week we put in a high in the overnight session after the Bank of Japan came out with their rate news, lack of rate hike. So we put in that high, and that high happened to be at 2094.75, which was also the gap fill for this gap. It was the close of this red candle here on June 22nd, that precise level. So I actually happened to be trading that night the ES, and I found that level to be very handy, and I happened to nail the top tick just because I recognized that was an important level from the past, even though the gap had already been filled. In Ichimoku, gaps are called windows. I don't know if I mentioned that a second ago. They offer support and resistance. So, regards to going further for this week, we have an overall bullish chart. Price action is above the cloud. The cloud is rising also, so that gives us, it's not really rising a lot. It's sort of flat to rising, I would say. It's going sideways for the next 2 weeks, then rising a little bit, then going a little bit more sideways, then rising into the middle of to Christmas, basically. This is where Christmas is. Then it sort of like slows down a little bit, makes a big ramp up into February, and then goes sideways some more. So that's just one of the wonderful things about Ichimoku charts, being able to predict the future, because this, we see that's February 2016 over here, that we see the cloud being drawn out. So we do have, however, a pretty big topping tail on last week's candle, which illustrates that there were plenty of sellers coming in off that 2094.75 level. But we did also find plenty of buyers coming in. This is really a long-legged spinning top type doji in my opinion. That type of candle can sometimes signify a potential trend change, and since we're in a pretty strong uptrend, we could get a trend change to the downside. However, and one other fact looking at this chart that illustrates that is we see the Chikou, this red line here representing price action, time shifted 26 periods into the past, so 26 weeks in this case. We see the Chikou is coming right into the bottom of this candle and Tenkan-sen, precisely at the level that this candle closed at, which is 2074. That's so basically the Chikou is finding resistance there. So if the Chikou does continue to find resistance, we could get a pullback. The Chikou says we could get a pullback all the way down to the Kijun-sen down here at 2039.72. We do have cloud support, however, at around 2058, 2070, 2057.75-ish. Not to say that we can't trade into the cloud and then close above the cloud and still have it act as support, because there are wicks and there are overshoots. So some other factors that we have going on in this chart is we do have price action above the Kijun-sen and the Tenkan-sen. Tenkan-sen is tipping upwards, reflecting this strong uptrend, but it's still bear crossed underneath the Kijun-sen. The Kijun-sen is flat, and when flat lines exist in Ichimoku charts, they tend to attract price towards them. However, we are still above the cloud, so we really need to lose the 2058.50 thereabouts level in order to trade down into the cloud deeper, and then we will have that support at the Kijun-sen at 2040. Let's call it 2040. And then if we do lose that support for the Chicow, you know, we do have support down here at 1983. Of course, that's pretty far down, so we can look at shorter time frames to find other levels of potential support if we do lose the top of the cloud up here at 2058. So I think that's about it. All I have to say on the weekly. Let's just take a look at I know this is the weekly wrap-up, but let's take a look at the daily real quick. Because I'm not going to do a daily video tonight. I don't have time. So we see that, you know, let me scroll out a little bit. We see that this area here was a big area of consolidation prior to our big sell-off, where we, you know, sold off, bounced, were unable to get above the 1990 level, you know, traded around, sold off again, bounced at, you know, this similar 1870 level, thereabouts, came up, traded back over the cloud, came back down, tested the cloud, broke out. That would have been a nice trade to pick up. Came back down, classic, pulled back to Tenkan Sen and broke out again, flagging here, broke out again, and now we're flagging again in this area of consolidation. So I expect that we could get some sideways chop in, like, basically in the area that's delineated by the window here, but also we could get a price to pull back as far as the Tenkan Sen. The Tenkan Sen is currently at 2051.13. It's we'll see where it opens up. It might open up in a different location, but if we do get a pullback all the way down to the Tenkan Sen, wherever it may happen to be, that would be a good buy point, in my opinion. We notice on the daily time frame, let me zoom in a little bit, it should make it easier to see. We noticed that the Chicow was unable to hold the cloud support here, the very thin cloud support, and it actually came down and is trading. So it would be interesting to see if the Chicow itself can hold the bottom of this gap window as the price of the last daily candle on Friday did. Alright, let's go back to the weekly and move on with some other charts. Let's look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ overall quite bullish, very strong uptrend, but we see that our upward momentum is waning as we put in a spinning top type doji with a small candle body after making a new high. We did have previous highs in this area, so we could either pull back or flag in this area. I think it's likely that we could flag, put in some more dojis sideways before moving higher, maybe even get a little bit of a pullback before moving higher. We can tell by looking at the Chicow over here that if we do get a pullback, the Chicow might find support at the 4506.75 area, or maybe down at the 44, let's call it 4478.50 area, which is this candle, and that's where the Chicow is going to be next week. It's going to be over this particular candle. So those are some hidden clues that you can't see over here because there's nothing over here. If we do get an even deeper pullback, we could pull back all the way to the Tenkan Sen, which is currently at 4365.50, or wherever the Tenkan Sen opens up on the NASDAQ. We do have a flat cloud for going into the end of the year, and then a rising cloud going into the beginning of next year, so that's important to keep an eye on. For the NASDAQ, let's look at the Russell next. Russell had some pretty crazy moves in the middle of the week. You know, put in this big high at the end of. Oh, I should be doing monthly charts. Good thing to think about. At the end of the at the end of the month, the Russell got bought up, and there were some people suggested that maybe funds were trying to get some small caps into their portfolio for window dressing or that type of thing. I'm really not sure because they really sold off the next day. But so we still have a long-legged spinning top doji here. We did manage to hold the cloud support, so we're technically neutral in Ichimoku terms on the Russell. with a pretty nicely defined range between the Kijun-sen to the upside at 1181.90 and the Tenkan-sen to the downside at 1131.60. But in order for us to test to the Tenkan-sen down here below the cloud, we need to lose the cloud. Looking over at the Chikou, it looks like it could be forming an inverse head and shoulder type pattern. So if that's the case, then whenever it completes and gets back up to the neckline, wherever you want to see the neckline, maybe we get a breakout over 1165 thereabouts, then I would expect a potential measured move maybe up to, I'm just eyeballing this, but maybe up to 1208.50, maybe up to these prior resistance levels in the 1212 area. All right, let's look at the Dow. I would make a little comment about the person that consistently has been thumbs downing my weekly video, but I think that probably you're not actually watching at this point, but because you probably just thumbs down my videos without watching just because you like to, and that's cool. I like you now. I'm no longer bothered by your thumbs down. So looking at the Dow, we see that we did test to try to get over the cloud here, put in a little bit of a tail over the cloud, but then we closed inside the cloud. This looks like potential reversal candle. Of course, in order to get a reversal confirmation, we need a lower high and a lower low, which we haven't put in, which we'll have to see if we put in. So it's possible that we might not be able to get over the cloud this coming week, which would be around 17,712. The Chikou is actually sort of finding support at the Kijun-sen here, and if it does tend to go higher, we could have the Chikou go all the way up to the Tenkan-sen here, which is basically like just slightly above the cloud and where the cloud, where last week's candle closed as well. So technically, the Dow is neutral in Ichimoku terms. We do have the Tenkan-sen underneath the cloud coming up for a bull cross, but bull crosses are not that significant under the cloud. Let's look at some metals. Let's look at gold. Gold looking pretty bearish on the weekly time frame. In fact, more bearish than last week, as we are in a downtrend. We did technically put in an outside candle with a higher high and a lower low. And after last week's inside candle was still technically still in an uptrend. So, trend is difficult to call on those terms here, but we did close below the Tenkan-sen, which I think is significant. So the Tenkan-sen will offer as resistance to the upside at 1144.70. And if we do sell, then we have some support levels to look at, like around maybe 1108, and then down here maybe at 1093. 50 thereabouts. These are just horizontal levels I'm just quickly eyeballing. But overall, gold is bearish in Ichimoku terms, and I would not be surprised to see a move lower unless we can get back over the Kijun-sen at 1152.20. Then we could see a move higher into this prior selling area around 1177. Let's look at silver. Silver came up and tested the cloud and was rejected and put in a close after opening under the Kijun-sen, put in a close far below the Kijun-sen near the lows. I was thinking that silver would probably test down at the Tenkan-sen area around 1530, and I was actually thinking about that because I was looking at the daily chart. So I'll just finish up with the weekly chart, and then I'll quickly look at the daily chart on silver. So overall, silver is bearish in Ichimoku terms, but does have potential of finding support at the Tenkan-sen. So let's look at the daily. If you look at the daily, silver is actually bullish because it's over the cloud. But we did have a very bearish candle on Thursday, and then Friday put in a spinning top type doji. So if we do not get a confirmed reversal to the upside on the daily, meaning a higher low and a higher high, we could come down and test the Kijun-sen, this pink line here at 1536.5. And that's what I was sort of potentially expecting last week, but it didn't happen. All right, back to the weekly. So the 36.5 level that I mentioned is still actually over the Tenkan-sen, but we'll see where the Tenkan-sen opens when the new weekly candle opens. Let's look at some treasury bonds, shall we? ZB looking pretty sideways at the moment, did lose its bullishness. Technically, ZB is neutral in Ichimoku terms as it has traded into the cloud, and it did find support at the Tenkan-sen, however, at 156.06. So I would expect that it would continue to find support at the Tenkan-sen, and if not, at the Kijun-sen below. And the cloud is moving lower, so it seems likely that it will contain price and pull it down lower with it. But you know, you never know. As far as the Chikou goes, the Chikou is stuck between the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen and sort of running into these candles here. So there's a possibility that if we do get some bullish activity in the 30-year Treasury bond, that would really be, if we did, that would really be, you know, like a breakout to the upside as far the way I see it, because it definitely seems like we're putting in a triangulating type pattern here, getting a smaller and smaller range. And if that were the case, then we could see the Chikou breaking through right here and coming up and potentially testing the Tenkan-sen up at the like 159.25-ish area. If not, we could see the Chikou moving lower and potentially finding support down here at the Kijun-sen at 153.12. Let's look at ZN. I am not yawning today, but I am perhaps sighing from time to time because it is like 85 degrees in my house because my air conditioning is currently broken and my landlord hasn't done anything about it yet. Okay, looking at ZN, we see ZN is neutral inside the cloud. Did put in a bit of a bottoming tail, but if it does sell lower, it can find support at the bottom of the cloud down here at, let's see, that's about 127.10. And then at the Kijun-sen below that at 127.075, those are some good potential support levels. Do, however, notice that the Chikou over here found support at the Tenkan-sen and then lost it and closed. Now it's like right at the bottom of this candle. So that could be potential for support or resistance in the upcoming week. Next up, let's take a look at crude oil. I should have done that ahead of time. Thank you for being patient, crude traders who waited all the way through those other tickers. Looking at crude, we see that it was interesting. Well, I don't know if you want to call it interesting. There was some pretty wild action on Thursday and Friday that was not very much fun if you happen to be trading intraday. It was somewhat untradeable. So let's go over the forensics thereof based on the weekly. We see that last week the Tenkan-sen tipped up, and the new candle opened under the Tenkan-sen. So because of that happening, the price had resistance at the Tenkan-sen. The Tenkan-sen is at 46.75, and you'll notice that we did get an overshoot on the price. Crude printed a high at 47.03, which it just tested briefly as it was blowing out the stops at the prior level, which was also an important daily level. And I'll look at the daily after we finish looking at this. I'll move my cursor so you can see this candle. We did put in a large bottoming tail on the bottom of this candle, so despite the fact that we are still at resistance of the Tenkan-sen, it's possible that we could get a reversal to the upside. We did have, hold the support level of 44.73 thereabouts, and after these two downtrend candles, this is a potential reversal candle, so we could get a move to the upside. We're actually not that high. I mean, we're actually not that far from the highs here. So it'll be interesting to see where the Tenkan-sen opens up when the new candle opens up. If we do move higher, we can potentially test the Kijun-sen above at 50.17. And if we do move lower, we could potentially retest this 44.73 level or thereabouts, and you know, maybe some other levels lower that we could look at on shorter time frames. Let's take a look at the daily. So on the daily time frame, you see that we did on Thursday, we put in a high right at the Kijun-sen, right around 46.75, and then on Friday we tested that high. I was actually trying to short that level myself, and found it to be quite difficult because we did overshoot quite a bit. You know, a 30-cent overshoot is significant. If you are trading live, you noted that once we did hit that 47.03 high, we sold off extremely rapidly, and it was very difficult to get filled if you are trying to get in on that short trade. I myself was unable to get filled getting into that short trade, but so looking forward, if we do move lower, we don't have support until the cloud down here at about 45.14 because of the shape of the cloud. And so we could move lower and follow the contour of the cloud like this. In fact, if we do move lower for the next few days, like say Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we could be in for potential thin cloud twist area, which is precarious and dangerous because we could break through to the downside. And if we do break through to the downside, I would not be surprised to see a retest of the 43 area. But we could also continue sideways here. It'll be interesting to see where the Tenkan-sen opens up on the new daily candle. The Tenkan-sen, if it pops up to reflect this upward momentum on Friday's candle, then it could act as a bridge and help us with support. Like if it pops up to, you know, around 45, something like that, could bridge us across this level. And once we get over to next week, we do have rising cloud support that's very solid. So as long as we stay above the clouds, that should be bullish moving forward on crude. Let's go through a few more weekly charts and then I'll wrap it up. Let's look at corn. Not much to see here on corn. Sideways, still bearish under the cloud. Did pierce the cloud, but still under the cloud. But we are holding Tenkan-sen support currently for corn. But corn's looking pretty sideways here. Let's look at wheat. Wheat had a very bullish week last week after putting in this potential reversal candle, and it did confirm the reversal with a higher low and a higher high. Pretty impressive move for wheat. I wouldn't be surprised to see wheat to continue to move higher and perhaps to test the bottom of the cloud next week and maybe even the Kijun-sen. So we're looking at 335.40 and the Kijun-sen up here at 535, and then the Kijun-sen up here at 539, thereabouts. Let's look at oats. Oats, just another doji, not very interesting, but did hold Tenkan-sen support, so still trapped in this range between the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen on the oats. Soybeans. Soybeans were unable to hold the Tenkan-sen here and close underneath the Tenkan-sen in a downtrend, lower high and lower low. So in order for one to want to get along soybeans, you want to see it get back above the Tenkan-sen level, which is currently at 886.50. Probably will remain at 886.50 unless we get a Tenkan-sen tipping down to reflect this downward price momentum, which could happen. Got soybean oil. Bean oil unable to lose the Tenkan-sen, but it's still in a downtrend. So the fact that it held Tenkan-sen support just means it's going to continue sideways until it can either get above the Kijun-sen way up here at 30.49, or until it loses the Tenkan-sen, which is currently at 27.59. No, sorry, 27.83. Let's see, corn, wheat, oats, soybeans. Let's look at coffee. Haven't looked at coffee lately. Coffee's still pretty boring, but potential reversal candle here. So we could see some buyers coming in. We did see some buyers coming in at this prior support level around 116.25. We could see a bounce in coffee up to the 126.07 level, where I would consider it to be fine resistance. So if you're looking to get long coffee, be very aware of that 126 level. I think that's gonna, oh, let's look at the dollar before I completely wrap it. Dollar put in a reversal type spinning top doji, kind of a pretty long topping tail and bottom tail here. This looks like we could get a reversal to the downside. If we do get a reversal to the downside, we can expect to find support at either the Tenkan-sen, which is currently at 95.86, or the top of the cloud, which next week is going to be at 95.69 or thereabouts. And that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to leave my $99 special up for my chat room subscription service, which includes private Twitter, trade ideas, and hand-holding and custom Ichimoku tutoring. I really go all out for my students, and it's really a great place to learn not only about Ichimoku charts, but futures trading in general, and to trade live in a nice community of very experienced traders. So I'll leave that up for tomorrow. I'll probably take it down at the end of the day tomorrow and go back from, discontinue my $99 special, go back to my prior rates of $149. So if you're interested in checking out my service, it's the time to take advantage of that is now, because it's, you can lock in that $99 rate for the length of your stay. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay $50 more a month. Thank you for watching, and have a great week. Good luck trading this week. Looks to me, if from my overall looking at all of the charts that we just looked at, it looks like we could be in for some sideways price action. Anyway, thanks for watching.